Hello Libra and welcome to your in-depth horoscope forecast for January 2021. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Also, if you'd like to order your year 2021 personal horoscope forecast and character analysis combination, please see the link below too. This gives you an opportunity to really understand what's coming for you in these coming months based on your time, date and place of birth. It's totally unique to you, and it will help to ascend above your zodiac sign and give you a much greater understanding of the opportunities, but of course of when planets can be a little bit more challenging. Now, as we begin this year, we still have an influence in the sign of Capricorn, which has been so incredibly powerful for you over the last few years. It comes in the guise of the Sun, Mercury and Pluto. Now, Pluto is going to be in Capricorn a while longer, through till part of 2023. It then reverses back into Capricorn after a brief sojourn into Aquarius before going into Aquarius for the longer term in 24. So there's still big changes going on about how you feel, how your relationship is with your inner self, where you live, how you live there, who with, your involvement with family members. All these things can still be politicized, undoubtedly, by the energy of Pluto. But the marvelous news, of course, is that Saturn and Jupiter have moved out of that part of your situation. Saturn can be about self-discipline, it can be about order, timekeeping, framework, structures, boundaries. It can be really good for us. And it's moved into your sector of creativity, of love, of self-expression. But Jupiter is with Saturn too. So they're still co-present like they were last year, but in a much more productive way. Jupiter really doesn't like being in Capricorn. Every 12 years when it happens, it leads to some kind of retraction in the financial markets at least. So for you, Jupiter and Saturn being together in the fifth house, you have to see it as an opportunity. For sure, if you know your astrology, you know that Saturn in the fifth house is not the funkiest location. But wherever Saturn goes, it's going to teach us something. And if we live in a state of fear, that's not good. So I would say to you, you're going to find yourself feeling a lot freer this coming year, but it isn't necessarily going to be a panacea. So it goes from being seriously difficult, which has been possible the last couple of years, to seriously amazing. It's going to be more nuanced than that, but there is lots of goodies this month for you to enjoy. And because this month is the turn of the year, we have the solar return by sign. So the first thing to note about that is that your ruler is in a very chatty location, and it's forging a glorious alliance with Mars, the planet of desire, in your sector of relationships. So it's an obvious connection. You could find yourself much more active about interacting throughout 2021. And that improved desire, or increased desire, I should say, I beg your pardon, to share information, your ideas, your enthusiasm, or just to have fun, to be playful, to be flirty, is going to be absolutely delicious. It is true that Venus is in a right angle with Neptune too. Neptune's in the part of your scope to do with where you work, how you work there, and how you're sacrificing at times. And it probably has seen you involved in a caring role of some kind since 2012. And that's great. It's probably brought out some wonderful elements of your nature. But this square with Venus just suggests that if you are working to people where there's a lot of communication going on, it's important that you don't get too swept away by other people's needs. If you can focus on the link between Venus and Mars, that's about joy, neat, unadulterated joy, and you need it, you deserve it. You need to set your intention to remind yourself of that, because the moon's actually in a very sociable location at the turn of this year, but it is oppressed or opposed at least by Saturn. So the people who don't bring much joy to your life, whether it is in a romantic context, whether it is in your friendship circle or a group or associate links that you have with other people or through social media, clear it out, because you need to be with the people who really appreciate you and feed your inner sense of self. And the fire of Venus and the fire of Mars gives you a glorious opportunity to strut your stuff in such a more charismatic way. So seize that opportunity. Now, Jupiter is going to be in a square with Uranus all of this month. Jupiter is about expansion, it's about growth, it's about travel, higher education, it can be about higher principles, and it's really comfortable in the sign of Aquarius if you think about it, because Aquarius and Sagittarius energies, which Jupiter rules, along of course with Pisces, have similarities, particularly around being freedom loving and at times being noble, seeing the big picture. Aquarius and Sagittarius have that in common. And because you're an air sign and communication is very, very important to you, I think having Jupiter in your 5th house primes you up, not for the whole of this year, but for a lot of this year towards opportunity. Because, do you know, Jupiter's actually going to be moving in the middle of May into Pisces. It's only getting up to about 1 degree, goes into a big retrograde as ever, lasting 4 months. By the end of July, it returns into the sign of Aquarius. The last 3 days, I think, of 2021, Jupiter nips back into Pisces again. So it is an unusual elliptic this year in terms of Jupiter. You don't get it in your 5th house quite as much as you might like, but it brings opportunities for you to be creative and then productive. And remember, Jupiter is the ruling or co-regent of the sign of Pisces. So when it does go in there, even if it is retrograde, it is in your sector of where you can prosper work-wise. So if there is a new energy coming in around being more creative, more self-expressive, you dig deep to make the most of the talents you've got with the help of Saturn, not just see it as a limitation. There's a lot to go for. But Jupiter squares Uranus. So Uranus is in the part of your horoscope to do with where you're really connected to someone, where you're really invested, or where you really don't want to be invested any longer. Because the 8th house is the nuts and bolts part of the zodiac, because it's governed essentially by scorpionic energy. So it's about deep stuff. It's very psychological. It can, in a practical, prosaic way, be about money and how we earn it, but it can also be about sex, but it also can be about death. But I'm talking about death in a metaphorical way. So if we think about the 8th house as where things change, fundamentally, when Mars moves to connect, Mars moves on the 7th, out of Aries, where it's been for that extended 6-month time period, moves into the sign of Taurus, connects with Uranus around the 18th or 19th, just as the Sun on the 19th moves into Aquarius. So I would say to you, if your need for a very deep alliance, and you're involved in a deep alliance or have been for a long time, or at least one that there's been a so-called level of commitment, if you're not really getting it fed in the way you really need, joyfully, a joyful feeding of your need to be upbeat, outgoing, charismatic, if there's something that's inhibiting you, that clash between Uranus and Mars could see something explosive happen. So you may really leave something that isn't working. Mars and Uranus together is incredibly powerful. And also, and this is key, on the 13th, the new moon in Capricorn, to do with your home and emotions still, combines with Pluto. Again, this is dynamite stuff. Big shifts can occur for you this month, but it's all about pushing you towards receiving what you rightly deserve and giving out what's really fully in your gift, your true potential. And if you're offsetting that because You're staying in something because it gives you a modicum of security, but it's not feeding a sense of excitement. It's not switching you on. You don't really feel alive and animated and really full of beans. That gives you the clue of where you are being asked to make some big changes. And once the sun moves early this year into Aquarius on the 19th, Mercury moves on the 8th, that suggests they're both going to be in instant connections with Saturn. So where something isn't working in a joyful context, could be with a romantic partner that you've been with for a while, it may even be in a relationship with an offspring, to be honest. So if you do have a child that it's difficult for you to really understand each other, this can be a pinch point this month, especially if they're relying on you financially and you feel that enough's enough. You're not going to be the bank of mum or dad any longer. But we also have that combination between the Sun and Saturn, which, remember, see the upside of Saturn. It's going to shape your talent. So if you can manifest your talent around that fourth week of this month, go for it. Now, there is a full moon on the 28th in Leo. This is a kind of repeat of the opposition between the moon, Saturn and Jupiter as the turn of the year occurs. So as the full moon occurs, it does T-square Uranus. And Uranus is coming into an exact right angle with Saturn in the second half of this month, particularly when Uranus ends its retrograde on the 14th. So I feel that if you're not getting what you really want, but there's a part of you that's putting all the money in or putting all the commitment in, that's where you're really going to get cheesed off. Someone needs to match your passion 100%, or you're going to want to get out of it. And if you're wanting to stick rather than twist because you prefer to keep the status quo, you can keep analysing it, keep worrying, what would happen if I change? It will just be stupefying for you. And because Saturn and Uranus are squaring up through to the first 7 months of this year, essentially, broadly, it's not going to be something you can keep putting off. And as Mercury goes into retrograde on the 30th, this could see you going into a big, deep think about, are you getting your talent, your amazingness out there? And if the question is answered no, Libra, the person who's going to change it is you. But the stars are giving you the platform, especially with Saturn and Jupiter, then Mercury, then the Sun in Aquarius. Go for it. You won't regret it. It may be painful, the transition, but what Uranus is going to do, particularly when it links with Mars, is catapult you into a new sense of excitement. And even if it is tough, it's going to wake you up, make you more alert, challenge you somewhat perhaps, but also create the space to bring the right people to you, the right opportunities. And 2021 can turn out to be such a better year than you've been experiencing in recent times. Please stay safe. Thank you so much for joining me. Good luck and goodbye.